Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 4 of my recap from the Zero to Hero. This is actually going to be the last episode of the series. Quite frankly, there's two reasons for that. When I made this series, I had two goals in mind. My first thing that I wanted to do was basically tests to see if the build that I was planning to play in 3.14 was going to be viable for the most endgame content ever, and it was. So that was a success. The only thing I can't do currently on my budget, which is a league start scenario would be worth around 15x, is very, very juicy feared invitations. I can do the feared, but I cannot do them very, very juicy, like 75% quantity or above. So in today's stream, I will be basically doing exactly that, trying to get to the point where this character is able to do the feared at 75% quantity, and basically do it consistently. So that's going to be my goal. But overall, I was really happy with that. Now, the second thing is that we are in the third month of a league. This is when the league is basically pretty much considered somewhat dead, right? Most people have quit. Not many people are still playing. And bossing has never historically been good in terms of making currency at this point in the league. There's currently no money to be made bossing. Now, that's not entirely true, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I mean bossing in the normal way, which is with one character, one account doing one specific boss. There's no real money to be made currently. I mean, there is some, but if you put it in relation to the price of a mirror, it's ridiculously low. It would take you days and days and days to farm even one single mirror. And I don't want to be making video updates every single day telling you guys that I did the exact same thing for 6 days in a row in order to farm a mirror. I will tell you guys exactly what I would do if I was going to do that. So if there's still some of you guys out there who decided to come with me on this journey and are trying to make a mirror or something, I'll be telling you how. So there's two things I want to cover basically in this video, and the first thing is going to be if I wanted to make currency bossing in a league start scenario, and if I wanted to make currency bossing at this point of the league. And when it comes to this point of the league, there's still, again, we're going to be looking at two different variations of ways to do this. One is going to be basically a lot more casual, a lot more friendly to even a character like mine right now, which is considered very budget. And the other is going to be for the people who are extremely try-hard and want to just maximize how much money they're making, upwards of something like 30, 40, 50 exalt an hour. And I'm not even exaggerating with this. All right, so that's pretty much it for the whole series. Now let's talk about the fun part, how to go about making currency. So because we are 3 months into a league, I'm going to start about talking the way I would go about making currency for later into the league, and then after that I'll talk about in a league start scenario what would change and how you can use basically this entire series to help you going forward. For example, if you plan on doing boss killing for 3.14 league start and making currency that way. Okay, so obviously right now bossing is all about invitations, right? You're not going to make any money just farming Shaper over and over again. You're not going to make any money farming Elder. You're not going to make any money farming, the Guardians, be it Shaper or Elder, nothing like that. There's no money to be made there. And the reason for that is very simple. None of their drops are worth anything, right? So if you look at their drops, and I'm not sure where they are, there they are. None of their drops are really worth anything valuable, right? Most of them, basically, the majority of your money that you would be making would be from dropping invitations once in a while. And, that's not very consistent. As you can see, the revenue from Guardian maps is like 20 chaos. You're making about 20 chaos profit. Now, 20 chaos profit out of nowhere sounds pretty decent, right? It's not all that bad. But when you put it in relation to exalt prices and the mirror prices, you'd have to farm hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of Guardian maps in order to earn even just one mirror. That doesn't sound fun, at least not to me. So if we look at bosses, it's kind of the same situation where, as you can see, most of the bosses are actually a negative in terms of value. And this is something very, very important to note because of what I'm about to explain. And this is going to be invitations. Now, I'm going to start talking with I'm going to start with basically the utmost currency you can make per hour right now, bossing. For the people who are insanely tryhard, I made a video about this a few weeks ago, and this is the video. Invitations are busted, Now, I'll be linking this video in the description as always. But essentially, the interesting part about this is that you can make a ridiculous amount of money doing the feared. Now, if you look at the feared, which is really interesting, the only real money that you're making, like at all, is basically through the Maven's Writs. The Maven's Writs are very, very sought after right now because people want the Maven's Orb in order to finish their crafting before the harvest changes go core, right? If the harvest changes actually go through, and people haven't finished crafting their GG items before that, Maven Orbs are pretty much going to be, I don't want to say useless, but let's just say devalued significantly. But right now, Maven's Writs are insane because Maven's Orb are insanely priced, and they're going up and up and up and up every single day pretty much. Okay, so the way that you would go about making money farming the feared right now is actually not just to have one single character, you know, doing the different bosses, Cortex, Shayula, etc., and then doing the feared and then rinse and repeat. If you did that, you would on average almost lose money. Now, you wouldn't actually lose money. As you can see, there is some profit to be made if you look at the price of the feared. But the thing is, this says 400 chaos profit. But this is only considering the price of the feared itself, which is the invitation, which is very cheap because not many people can do it, and the revenue from the invitation, which is mostly going to be the Maven's Writs. But this does not account for the bosses that you have to kill, right? So the actual profit is not 412C. It's 412C minus 400C minus 150 minus 35 minus, you know, etc., etc. So you're actually looking at losing money on average if you were to do the feared currently with a single player. Okay, so how do we go about fixing this so that we don't lose money anymore? Well, we do what I said in my video, like I mentioned, and we use multiple accounts. So there's two ways to go about this. Either you multi-box, where you'd have like virtual machines or whatever, or you use other physical computers. Now, I do want to say a quick note on this. It seems that recently GG has basically changed their view, or at least their level of strictness when it comes to using alternate accounts via virtual machines and whatnot. It seems that nowadays, if you really want to be safe, you should be using another physical computer, which means you'll need a second computer or something like that, a third computer, a laptop, whatever it is. But virtual machines, I've heard a lot of people get in contact with me and tell me that their alts have been banned, even if they weren't using any sort of scripts, any sort of TOS programs. Now, I can't verify that, how truthful people are, you know, but I've had quite a few people tell me that. So I would say be very, very careful when it comes to that. And I would advise just using another physical computer, a laptop or whatever. If you don't have a laptop, if you don't have another physical computer, then this is completely not possible for you. And I think that this is a problem, and I think GG should address this, which I'll be making a video about sometime soon. Anyways, so that would be the way to do it. Now, you would basically use 4. I think 4 would be the minimum number of alternate accounts, because if you use 4 accounts, 4 alts plus your main, that's 5 accounts. You have 6 portals. That gives you basically 1 portal to fail any given boss fight and not fail the entire thing and lose your entire investment. So basically it gives you a bit of leeway and place for error. Now, if you did it that way and you had 4 alternate accounts plus your main, that is 5 accounts total. If you do the Cortex and you have all these 5 different accounts witnessing, that means you can do 5 feared. And when I say Cortex, I mean Cortex, Uber Elder, or Elder Shaper. You know, all these different bosses, you have to do all of them. You get to do 5 feared plus the base one that you did. So for the price of 1 Cortex, you get to do 6 Cortex. For the price of 1 Uber Elder, you get to do 1 Uber Elder and then 5 Elders and 5 Shapers. For the price of 1 Chayula, you get 5 Chayula or 6 Chayulas. You know, you get it, right? It's pretty simple. It makes sense. Now, if you look at it in that regards, instead of the profit being in a negative, like I said before, the profit would actually be 412 times 5 invitations. Now, that if you did it with 4 alts, you could actually do it with 5 alts if you're very confident in your build, because remember, this is the hardest content in the game and you need to be able to do it corrupted, rare, super juiced up, right? So only a handful of builds can even do that. Okay, so now we're looking at 2,000 minus 400 minus, let's see, so Uber Elder is 150. Uber Ziri is, let's see, Uber Ziri is about 35. Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing actually. I have to do this again. So we're looking at 412 C profit times 5, my bad, minus 440, which is 4.4 exalts for a Cortex right now, absolutely insane, minus 180, minus 40, and then what else is there? There's also, you have to do, yeah, right, so minus, I'm not sure how much shield is right now, but it's probably like 1 exalt, right? So at that point, if you do it that way, even disregarding the drops from these bosses, or any of the other bosses, I'm pretty much just looking entirely only at Maven's Ritz right now. Just off of Maven Ritz, you would be making about 13 exalt profit per rotation. You can do these rotations about 15-20 minutes. Now, this doesn't include trading time, so let's just say you could probably do this probably about 2.5-ish of these rotations per hour. So you're looking about over 30 exalt an hour just in Maven's Ritz. Now, that doesn't consider Watcher's Eyes. It doesn't consider anything else, right? So ridiculous amounts of currency, as I had already mentioned in my other video. But if you're just a regular player who doesn't have multiple computers, who doesn't have an insane build with, you know, mirrors and mirrors and mirrors, and if you've been following me through this whole series and doing what I've been doing, you're probably wondering, okay, but how do I go about making currency if I'm just, you know, a regular player? Well, we're going right back to invitations. But this time, I would say that the best invitation is going to be the hidden. Now, why the hidden? Very put simply, it's because you can buy the actual breachstones in bulk for very, very cheap, and also very, very easily, right? So you can buy these different breachstones for doing the hidden invitations for ridiculously cheap. The exhausts, the tolls, the esh, they're just a couple of chaos each, even in bulk. You can buy them 20 at a time, so just a few chaos, and you can buy the Onithals for like 10 chaos each. Now, that might sound like a lot, but in reality, that is basically nothing. Because if you look at the price of a single one of the Shaper or Elder Guardian mats, it's like 15 chaos. Meanwhile, if you're doing the invitation for the Breach Lords, it's basically the price of one Guardian map for the entirety of the 4 breach stones that you need. So very, 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 very cheap. The advantage also there is that it's super safe and that it's, well, again, it's very, very easy. But there is one thing to note here is that the actual invitation itself, the hidden, which is the one for the breach stone, is very difficult. It is actually, some people would say that it's actually harder to do than the feared itself. So it's a very, very difficult one, but you are doing it with a single account. Since you're doing it with a single account and the breach stones are incredibly cheap, you are getting ridiculous amount of value. And one thing to note is that if you don't like trading, right, for the hidden itself, you can actually dupe this over and over again by splitting it. So an interesting thing that we found out on stream is that you can split these different invitations in order to do them basically infinitely. So if I took this invitation here, I can basically split it over and over and over again. So instead of having to rebuy the invitation, I can buy the split beasts in bulk, and that's way less annoying to buy in bulk than it is to try to buy invitations in bulk. So it saves you a lot of time. It costs around the same, maybe a little bit more, but the convenience is the time. So if you have been following my exact build or, you know, this whole series and you're like, okay, but Matt, how do I go about making currency now? Like right now, this is what you do. You start doing the hidden invitation and you just start blasting through those. Breach stones are fairly time consuming, so you're not going to be able to do that many of these per hour. But if you're doing these pretty juicy with like 70 quantity, you're getting half of a Maven's invitation, or sorry, a Maven's boss fight. You're getting about 5 splinters, 5 Maven Ritz every single map, which is worth about 170 chaos. The invitation itself, if you're splitting it, is worth about 50 chaos alongside the breach stones. So you're making over an exalt profit every single time you do one of these, which is pretty decent. Now, if you actually go super giga juicy and you go 100% quantity on these, you can actually drop even more than 5 of these splinters. But this is very time consuming, which is why, like I said, at this point of the league, boss killing is not super great. If you would have done that weeks ago or potentially months ago, like a month ago, if you had done the exact same thing that I just said, you would have these different uniques from the Breach Lords, like for example, the Anticipation Shield, which would have been worth a lot, potentially more than what you'll make right now through Maven Ritz alone. So, you know, bossing later in League is just not very good. Now let's talk about it in an early League scenario, as I'm going to be doing in the 3.14 upcoming League start. I will be bossing, basically, unless there's something in the patch notes which drastically changes everything and it looks like everybody's going to be bossing, so that would make it much less profitable. But otherwise, my plan is to boss. I really had a lot of fun playing this character and bossing with it. It's also fairly good in maps, but don't worry, I'll have a build guide for this entire character in a few weeks, basically prior to the 3.14 League start launch. Okay, so what I think is the best way to go about it, in my opinion, is to basically blast up to the point where you can do the Guardian maps, and you want to be able to do the Guardian maps white. So when I say that, is basically these different maps, you want to be able to do them just white. But you don't only want to be able to do the Guardian whites to make money in a League start scenario. You want to be able to do them whites, but with Maven on the map device. And not only that, you really, really want to have this node here. Now, potentially this node will be gone in 3.14, but hopefully not. Now, what this node does is that it makes it so that when you're fighting the boss, when it gets to 33% life, it is basically going to respawn to full life. So it's going to be healed up back to full, and it's going to be basically joined by an ally. So what that means is that, let's say I'm doing Minotaur, I get him to 33%. He is basically going to heal back up to full, which means I have to fight him back again. But at the same time, I'm going to have to fight either Chimera, Hydra, or Phoenix, which makes the fights much, much, much harder, which is why, like I said, you want to be able to do them white. Now, the other reason for that is that no matter if you do the Guardian map white or rare corrupted, it won't really change the outcome of what you're going to get in terms of either the boss drops themselves or the bases that you're going to get, which is coming from also this node, these little nodes right there that have 35% chance to drop an influence item. So that's not really going to be affected. And it's not going to affect the ability to drop the fragments either, such as, for example, the Shaper fragments or the Elder fragments. So you really just want to be able to do them white. But you do want to be able to do invitations rare and even, if possible, even corrupted rare. Because if you can do the invitation rare, you're going to get more loot from it, but you're also going to get more Maven splinters from it, which at the start of a league are worth a lot less than, for example, the worth of just the uniques that you're getting from the Elder or the Shaper Guardians. But there's still a lot of value there. So what I'm going to be doing is basically this following sequence. I'm going to be doing 4 of the Shaper Guardians, 4 of the Elder Guardians. Then I'm going to do the Shaper Invitation, the Elder Invitation. Now at that point, I'm going to have a Shaper set and an Elder set. So I'm going to do Shaper, I'm going to do Elder. Now at that point, I've already done Shaper, I've already done Elder, I've already done all of the other bosses. All I'm missing is Cortex, Chayula, and Uber Adziri, and I can do the Feared, which is basically going to double the value of my Shaper, my Elder, and also at the start of a league or in a league start scenario, Chayula's blessings are very, very expensive. And Adziri's axe can be worth a good amount, and Adziri's gloves can be worth a good amount as well. So I'm also going to be doing the Feared. Now, if I can't do the Feared super juiced up corrupted, it's whatever, because it's already very cheap. So, and typically in a league start scenario, especially, Cortex is going to be profitable by itself. So getting 2 Cortexes for the price of 1 is going to be insane value. And basically, that's going to be how I'm going to go about it. In between these different invitations, these different boss fights, I'm going to do boss killing services. Now, this is something that's harder to do if you're not in a position where you could basically utilize your stream or your community in order to, you know, find people who need or are in need of boss killing carries. But you can still make a post on the forums. You can still make posts on things like TFT, offering your services. And some of the most, I guess you could say, famous boss killers are actually not people who are streamers in league start scenarios. A lot of the time, it's just people who have been doing it forever. And if you look at their threads on the forums, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments. So they're making plenty of currency despite the fact that they are not public figures. It's really just about building a reputation of being, you know, a solid boss killer over time. And that's basically how I'm going to go about making currency. Now, there is a chance that this changes if, for example, you know, Cortex or is really expensive, or for example, if the Guardian uniques are extremely worthless, or if the Guardian maps are way too expensive, stuff like that. I do think that falling back and being able to just do the hidden, which is the invitation for the Breach Lords, is actually a pretty good strategy, even very early in League, because of the amulets and also because of anticipation shield from Ulnathul. Now, it really comes down to basically the price of these different uniques from the Breach Lords themselves, because that's what you would be making money from. I had a friend who basically made 10 mirrors with his buddy, so they were two-manning these invitations, the form or the hidden for the Breach Lord one, right? They were two-manning these, and in 10 days they made 10 mirrors. So they're making 1 mirror per day, farming just and exclusively these Breach Lord invitations. So there's a lot of money to be made there. So that's pretty much it in terms of how to go about making currency right now bossing, or how to make currency basically in a league start scenario. And that also basically concludes this series. As I said, today I'll be figuring out how to get this build to be able to do the feared consistently for what is still considered to be a cheap budget. So if you're interested in that, stop by the stream. But I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys learned a lot, you know, in this very short series. And as always, before I go though, I want to say a huge thank you to my supporters: Sir Jordan, Lost with the Map, Kremis, So Nice, Flame Scorpion, Nathaniel, Richard, JW Player, Scott, Young B, Tuck Tuck, Michael, Ashley, Pabloms, Cool, Keebs, Marcus, Justin, Matt, Kevin, Powell, Mercury, Ethan, Citri, Jared, Axel, and Acid, as well as a huge thank you to Phenom and Trevor. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the series, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.